I'm glad to see that you have returned. In fact, it's been a few days now, hasn't it? Certainly more time has passed between this visit and the last than has between other visits, I'm certain. It would appear, sadly, that I've come down with something. This does not usually happen to me. In fact, I don't think I've ever experienced something quite like this. And I'm not sure what it might be. They've given me some medication. To treat the flu-like symptoms, but they do not seem to be working. But with your presence, I must say that I do feel a little bit better. Maybe it's linked to that. I've never really had to spend a large amount of time away from other humans, even if I wasn't necessarily directly interacting with them. Perhaps that is why I've come to grow a little ill. Maybe I need human interaction, just as humans need vitamin D and sunlight. Without it, wouldn't you perish? Or go insane, or something terrible could happen, locked in confinement all alone? Well, perhaps that is what is happening to me. Regardless, I do have some interesting developments. You see, I've wanted to learn very much about this place that has me locked away. I've wanted to learn about the other inhabitants, like myself, other prisoners, and why they are here. What threats have they posed, and what danger have they caused? But it's very, very hard to find information. I've found that D-class individuals are not made privy to the other anomalies and their containments. Seems like you're all left in the dark. But I did manage something, but I'm going to need you to keep it a secret. Do you think that you can keep it a secret for me? A little secret. I feel like the time that we've spent together has allowed me to trust you, and vice versa. So, I'm going to entrust you with a little secret. It seems that I've grown a little more powerful. The range of my telepathy has increased. Not only can I communicate with those who come within my cell, within these four walls, but I've managed to find other minds. No, I wouldn't dare to try to speak to others that are in containment. Who knows what their abilities, what their powers might be. And after all, I do wish to preserve myself. No, instead, I tapped into the mind of one of the researchers on my project. Yes. No, he doesn't know. Just as I managed to make myself a room inside your mind, I went through his palace. There were rooms that were well used, but further down those halls there were rooms that are long forgotten, covered in dust, left in disarray, uncared for, empty. I found myself one of those rooms in his little memory palace and took up residence there. I will have to be very careful indeed, for if he finds me, well, who knows what they might do to my containment procedures then. So I have to be very quiet. But I managed to slip an idea into one of the more prevalent thoughts upon that frequency. And perhaps with the littlest bit of manipulation, just the littlest bit, I promise, I had him go to research some of the SCPs that he had access to. Seems there's a lot of redacted information, but I do remember one so far that I found to be very intriguing, very interesting, perhaps a little scary. Certainly gave me a bit of a shiver to know that something like this exists. I mean, I understand that I myself am an anomaly, but I don't think I pose nearly as much danger as the SCP I'm about to reveal to you. Are you afraid? No, don't be afraid. They can't harm you, can they? They're locked away in their cell, and you get to roam free. Shouldn't be a problem. So, my question remains. Are you afraid of the dark? Are you so afraid that you do not want to hear what I have to say? Or will you give me your ear? You're interested. I knew you were a strong one. It seems that all of our discussions about fear have helped you to overcome many. I'm glad for this. You've made me very proud. But of course, without further ado, I will tell you its tale. This is SCP-205. They've called it Shadow Labs. Item number SCP-205. Object class, the same as mine, Euclid. SCP-205-1 and SCP-205-2 are contained within Chamber 52 at Site under regular observation via the adjoining observation room. SCP-205-1 and SCP-205-2 are to be supplied with power and face the white projection screen on the wall opposite the observation window at all times. Chamber 52 requires monthly maintenance to ensure the continued operation of both SCP objects, their power supply, and remote activation controls. Replacement parts and bulbs are kept on hand in the chamber. Maintenance is suspended during the final month of the SCP-205 cycle, occurring in April and October of each year. Should power to the Chamber 52 fail, it is to remain dark and sealed for a period of 30 days before local security enters to re-engage power for continued observation and containment. During maintenance, it is critical that only one of the SCP-205 pair is ever turned off at a time. Should both objects lose power or otherwise cease normal operation, the chamber must be sealed for a 30-day period before local security may enter to re-engage power and retrieve the remains of any personnel lost in the chamber. Pending 05 review, testing and observation is to continue before SCP-205 is to be moved to permanent storage. SCP-205 is a pair of flood lamps used in photography. The light emitted by each lamp behaves in a manner unique to SCP-205 and passes completely through any surface that is not colored white. Once the light contacts a white surface, it scatters and reflects as normal and loses any unnatural properties. If the light continues uninterrupted through any matter, otherwise casting no shadow, each lamp will display an unidentified young woman's shadow upon any flat white surface, such as the projection screen in Chamber 52. Whether or not this shadow corresponds to anyone living or dead has yet to be determined, although the shadow appears to reenact a specific series of events leading up to the woman's death. Even if the lamps are slightly moved, the shadow remains distinct and does not lose focus or move along with the one lamp or the other. Only one shadow is cast, although a physical person standing before two lamps would actually cast two shadows. When supplied with steady power and maintained, the SCP-205 pair will go through a 6-month cycle that ends on April 30th and October 31st of each year. Neither the inclusion of an extra day during a leap year nor intermittent operation failures change these dates. Thus, SCP-205 cycle appears to be tied to the standard calendar rather than a set passage of time. SCP-205 will shut off at midnight on the final day of each cycle. Any persons entering or already inside Chamber 52 when the lamps are both turned off are violently assaulted by forces unseen in a manner consistent with the fate suffered by the Shadow Woman, regardless of any other light sources in the room. If the lamps are shut off at the end of a standard 6-month cycle, they can be remotely activated to immediately end the danger and begin a new cycle. If the lamps cease operating for any other reason, Chamber 52 will remain dangerous and must remain sealed for at least 30 days, regardless of the status of SCP-205 itself. During a dangerous phase, any equipment in the room is often ransacked. But, although SCP-205 itself has sometimes been moved, the lamps are never damaged. On 2 occasions, were carved into the walls. This strongly implies that displaying an awareness of current containment procedures. For the first month of operation, SCP-205 will display a still image of one woman in a provocative pose. Although variances have been noted in the pose and clothing of the woman, the individual displayed appears to be distinct and consistent through all cycles. During the last week of the first month, the shadow will begin to move slightly as if the individual is shifting her weight or becoming uncomfortable. Her hair and clothing will be observed to flutter in ways that do not correspond to any movement of the atmosphere within Chamber 52. By the end of the first calendar month, the shadow will break her pose and spend the next 8 hours moving through a series of poses that imply a photography session complete with clothing changes and short breaks, sometimes including a meal. After the session is over, the shadow will constantly be in motion for the next 5 months, displaying a pantomime of the last days of a young model's life before she is brutally murdered at the end of the cycle. The shadow of the woman never moves beyond the boundaries of the projection screen. The shadows of objects that the woman appears to be interacting with do not appear unless they are being picked up or carried, and with the exception of the final month of the cycle, any other individuals that the shadow appears to be interacting with remain unseen. Although the cycle is slightly different each time, certain consistencies are observed. The individual portrayed appears to have taken up photography as a hobby in addition to being a fashion model. Her behavior implies a great deal of social interaction, although with a lack of intimacy, and behavior that indicates living alone rather than with family or a partner. One implied sexual encounter with an unseen partner occurs in the second or third month of the cycle, and exactly 66 explicit sexual encounters occur in the final month of the cycle. During the last month of the cycle, in April and October, shadows distinct from the young woman are displayed. These shadows all have exaggerated nude male physiques and horns projecting from the cranium, although no phallus is ever observed, even during the sexual displays that take up the final days of the cycle. Only one shadow appears at first, interacting with the woman in a manner suggesting that they have met at a party or social gathering. The woman does not appear to notice the unusual nature of the other shadow and plays out a series of varying romantic interactions with it. The horned shadow will return to dine with the woman, engage in silent conversations, and accompany her on outings. One recurring event involves the horned shadow introducing the woman to at least 2 other identical horned figures. After the second week of the month, the woman will take photographs of one or more of the horned individuals during one of their outings, always with a non-digital camera that has been consistent through all observed viewings of the SCP-205 cycle. After this event, explicit sexual encounters will begin between the woman and one of the figures, increasing in intensity and frequency until the end of the third week. During the final week of the month, the woman appears to develop the film in her camera for the first time since photographing the horned shadows. Her reaction to the photograph is one of shock and horror, and her movements afterward suggest that she attempts to flee and seek shelter behind a locked door, presumably in her home. There, she is encountered by multiple instances of the horned shadow figure which assault her repeatedly for the remainder of the week. It is strongly implied that she is killed during this process, although the assaults will continue until the end of the cycle. On the last day of the cycle, one of the horned shadows begins to grow larger in a manner suggesting that the figure casting it is approaching the SCP-205 lamps directly. It will eventually overcast all other shadows, and at this time, both lamps will be physically turned off, regardless of any modifications made to prevent a halt in operation. SCP-2051 has been in the Foundation's possession since SCP-2052 is identical in every way, including the serial number. It was discovered in a ransacked motel room in on no sign of the identity or whereabouts of the occupant have been found, although a camera similar to the one displayed in the 6th month of the SCP-205 cycle was also recovered. Most of the contained film was ruined by exposure, although there was one photo that remained and was developed from the camera of 3 horned individuals. On 10/28, SCP-205-2's bulb burnt out. Researcher M. was sent in to Chamber 52 to replace the bulb during one of the climactic assaults. Upon the opening of Chamber 52's door, all horned shadow figures within view ceased their activity and turned towards the door. Researcher N. resealed the chamber and refused to enter to perform maintenance. The shadow figures did not resume their usual activity for approximately 3 hours. Upon a second incident labeled 205-77A on 4/28, SCP-205-2's bulb exploded. Shadow figures all ceased activity and looked towards the chamber door. No staff were dispatched to replace the bulb. Chamber 52 was sealed and abandoned for 30 days, according to procedure. I've wondered about this SCP. It has left my busy brain rather active with speculation. For instance, is it the same woman? Imagine if it was not the same woman each time, but just an archetype, a type of woman that this SCP targets and murders. And imagine still if this was not just a record of an incident already past, but incidents that occur within the cycle, each cycle bringing a new victim. But then that would beg the question of how these horned humanoids travel and whether they are really contained, and if such was the case, I feel it would be a much more difficult procedure, and they wouldn't need to lure someone in to murder. It is more likely that if the woman is different, it is replaying old instances of past murders committed. However, it does say that the woman, even though her clothes and her poses may change, seems to be the same woman. Another point that I have given some thought to is that it seems like these creatures are directly tied to these lamps, perhaps contained within them. When turned off, they are active and will attack anything within the room's confines. Perhaps that is why they try to lure the doctors back. It appears they are cognizant, they are capable of learning and understanding their surroundings and their current containment, and are unafraid of displaying this knowledge. They seek to lure someone back, but to what end? To murder? Is that all? From the description, we are led to believe that someone has been made a victim during the time when the SCP is most dangerous. I've taken to calling it the danger zone. Personnel are not to enter during the danger zone. It would have been interesting if each new death appeared in this silent movie reel, the death played back again and again and again. but alas, it is not. I am surprised they have not detailed the results of a D-class test rat entering the darkened chamber to suss out the parameters of these lamps and their horned prisoners. Which makes me further question how many have fallen prey to this SCP. I also wonder what would have happened had the initial victim not developed the film. Everything seemed fine until the truth behind their identities was revealed and their glamour made moot. Perhaps, if she had not stumbled upon it, she'd have lived a long and prosperous life. What do you think? Comment below. Did this SCP scare you? If not, what does? I wonder what other things go bump in the night in this facility.